Ja, danke, dass ihr mich gefragt habt, mein Abschlussarbeit zu präsentieren. I'm going to do it in English. I hope that you can all understand me. First of all, I'm going to outline why I am interested in food forests and why I did this waldgarten course. Then I shall give some technical details about my land, and then I will go on to describe my project. So I've always liked being outdoors and gardening, and I'm lucky enough that my house has quite a big garden. When we moved here 12 years ago, we had two walnut trees, a sweet chestnut, three apple, one plum, and one mispel tree, and also a grapevine. So we had quite a lot. And the rest of the garden was grass. So gradually, I started to plant plants. Most of them were edible plants. There was no plan. I just bought what looked good. And then it became COVID time, and I had time to do some research. And I found out about hugel bait. So I made my first hugel bait and planted some seeds and some plants, and lots of food began to grow. It was quite amazing. And then I also decided to do a wildlife pond. So I dug a pond, and suddenly the garden was full of life. So the food that was growing was being pollinated by bees and butterflies. And then I noticed that we had many different types of animal. We've got snakes and slow worms, different types of bees and wasps and birds, butterflies, dragonflies, all sorts of things. It was really amazing. Then I started to read about food forests, and I realized that my garden was very similar to a food forest. It had different levels and it had different zones already, but they hadn't been planned. So it was not well planned, but everything was there. Also, I've never used any chemicals. I only use what's there already. Like a lot of people, I'm very worried about the environment and what's happening. Many plants are becoming extinct, many creatures are becoming extinct, and it's so important that we all do something to help. And I was thinking, what can I do to make a positive difference? And then I realised I could buy a plot of land and make a proper food forest, but this time plan it from the beginning. So it's not just a bit here and a bit there. And that's the reason that I started to do this Waldgarten course. It's to have some tips and ideas and information about how to plan a food forest properly. I have three aims of having a food forest. The first one, as I have said, is to do something for the environment. The second one is self-sufficiency. I want to be able to produce enough food for my family and then to share with others. And the third aim is something social. So maybe the land could be a meeting point, or maybe we could have some courses there. But I want to share it with other people. So the social part is important to me as well. It was very difficult to find a suitable plot of land. First of all, the cost of it, and secondly, I don't have a car, so it has to be accessible by public transport. After 2 years of looking, I finally found a beautiful plot of land. Um, I live in Graz, and the land is on the edge of a village about 15 kilometres northeast of Graz. It's at the foot of a mountain and it's surrounded by woodland. The plot of land is a wood, actually. Um, the area has got very good air. So there's a rehabilitation centre there for people with heart problems and lung problems because the air is so good. It's also an area of water sources. So there are lots of wells and lots of sources of drinking water. It's also a relaxation area. On the mountain, you can go skiing in the winter, mountain biking. There's a cable car, there's a toboggan. You can go on woodland walks in the area. You can go on alpaca walks. There's a lot of things to do. There are climbing parks. So it's a very interesting area. So I'm going to show you a map of where it actually is. So the red spot shows where the land is. The mountain is called the Schuckel and the village is called St. Radegund. And here you can see outlined in red the actual plot of land. And this is what it looks like when you arrive there. One important point as well is there's a bus stop 3 minutes walk from the land and opposite my house. So it's very, very easy to get to. Okay, I'm now going to talk about the technical details. So, on three sides of the plot of land, there's a road. It's normally quite quiet with cyclists, but because the road is very long and windy and narrow, you also sometimes get boy races. So you get people driving racing cars and motorbikes. So sometimes there is some noise, but it's not too bad. The plot of land is actually woodland and it's approximately 5,500 square metres. There's not much infrastructure apart from the road. On the plot of land, there's no electricity, there's no sewage, and there's no mains water supply. The village of St. Radegund is about 15 minutes walk away. There's a supermarket there, a small supermarket, two cafes, and two restaurants. The soil type is non-calcareous cambisol from rock or debris. So it's soil at the beginning of its formation. It's brown and it's very productive soil. It's sandy silt or loamy soil and it's very rich in humus. The depth of the soil is average. There are many trees growing there, so it allows for quite deep roots. The groundwater, it's moderately dry, the permeability is high, and the storage capacity is quite low. I've carried out two soil samples. This is the first one. That one was carried out in January, and this one was carried out in July. Both times the soil smelled very earthy and healthy, and it was very loose and dark brown. It's very rich in humus. In January, there were no worms, but in July, there were quite a lot of worms. In January, there was one root growing horizontally, but the sample I took in July had lots of small roots in it. In January, the soil was very crumbly, so I could make it into a ball, but if I tried to roll it, it crumbled away. Whereas in July, I could make it into a ball and I could knead it and it remained in shape. Um, the weather. So the hottest month is July with an average temperature of 21 degrees. The coldest month is January with an average temperature of -1 degree. In winter, the temperature is between -4 and -6. In spring, between -1 and 18. In summer, between 12 and 23 degrees. And in autumn, from 1 degree until 18 degrees. The month with the most precipitation is July, with an average of 95.5 millimetres. The annual precipitation is 668 millimetres. In winter, there's a snow covering of up to 200 millimetres, although last winter there was not any snow really. The main direction is north-northwest to northwest, and the wind strength average is 10.8 kilometers an hour. The windiest month is April, and it's 13.5 kilometers an hour on average. The sunniest month is August with 20 sunny days, and December has the least amount of sun with only 6 days. Okay, so I did a sun and shade map. I used three dates. I used the 8th of April, the 8th of July, and the 8th of October. And timings, I used 8:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m., and 4:30 p.m. And I checked where the position of the sun was at these times. So where the circles are is the position of the sun. The plot, because it's a woodland, is very shady. So there's actually only an island of sun, which I've marked out. In this island of sun, there's about 3 to 5 hours of sun per day in April, about 4 to 6 hours of sun per day in July, and 3 to 4 hours of sun per day in October. So there's not very much sun. From my observations, there's also another area slightly south of the Sun Island, which also gets about 2 to 3 hours sun a day in the summer. So it's not very much sun, really. Okay, so this map shows the different sectors. The plot lies, wait a second, the plot lies northwest to southeast direction. On the east side and on the west side, behind the dotted line, it's a steep slope. The plot is surrounded on every side by woodland, which means there's shadow from every direction. Also, on the plot of land, there is quite a lot of shade because of the high trees. As I've said, the wind direction is north-northwest to northwest. There are animals on the land. I have seen a deer twice. I've heard an owl. I've seen lots of frogs, lots of bees, butterflies, dragonflies. Apparently, there's also a martin there, and I've seen where a black woodpecker has pecked at a tree. There's quite a lot of water on the land. So on the west side, there is a stream. There's also a well, and there's also a fish pond. So the water is all in blue. Above the fish pond, there's a little area of water which feeds from the stream into the fish pond. Okay, I'm now going to talk about my project. The land is not what I'd imagined at all, actually. I wanted to have an urban plot or a monoculture, and I wanted to renovate the land and introduce animals there and life there. But I couldn't find anything suitable. It was either far too expensive or I couldn't get to it by bus. After 2 years of looking, I found the plot of land which I've bought and I fell in love with it straight away. It's really beautiful. I did think it was perfect at the beginning. However, because it's a wood, there are strict rules regarding what you can and can't plant. So I had intended to plant fruit trees, for example, but that's not allowed in a wood. Also, it's a lot more shady than I thought it would be, so I'm quite limited as to what trees I can plant. At the beginning, I was a bit worried about it, but actually, I've accepted that I can't do everything I want to do, and it's fine. The plot of land belonged to a family for 33 years, and they really looked after it well. And when we bought it, it was already very, very well equipped. There's a cellar for storage. There's a seating area with a table and benches under a roof with an auger that we can cook with using wood from the land. There are benches dotted about the plot of land. There's a linden tree with a stone circle underneath it, and benches and a table. There's a fish pond. There's a composting toilet. There's a caravan that we can sleep overnight in. There are bridges over the stream. There's a birdhouse, a well. There are piles of stones and rocks. The former owners left all their tools for us, and we bought the lawnmower. So we actually have almost everything that we need. The only thing I really need to buy are plants and trees. There are already edible things on the land. There are several walnut trees, although the deer quite like to eat them, so they're not growing too well. But we have walnut trees, we have a sweet chestnut tree, which is very small. We have several elderberry trees, and a plum tree. We also have wild garlic, bilberries, strawberries, blackberries, and hazelnuts. There are also lots of leaves on the land which I can use for mulch, and the wood I can use for heating and for cooking and for marking out the pathways. I bought the plot of land in December last year, so less than a year ago. So this year I've mainly been observing what's happening, what's growing, and what animals are there. A lumberjack came to look at the trees a few weeks ago, and there were 6 trees that were dead or diseased. So he cut those down last week, so that's done. I made a list of critical factors, for example, which edible trees are allowed, which materials are best for the pathways, which plants would grow there, taking into account the pH level of the soil, the sun, and the shade. So I need to do a lot of research, discuss things with other people, and plan very well. I've also written a to-do list, what needs to be done and when. So far, I've managed to keep up with and do it the way that I planned. For example, the lumberjack has been and cut the trees down. I've written a detailed list of suitable perennial plants and trees, and I've written their benefits for the soil or for pollinators, if they have healing properties or if they're just edible. Many of the plants that I want to plant are very unusual and you cannot buy them from normal garden centres. So I've also managed to find 2 people that sell unusual and old fruit and vegetable sorts. This is the pathways. So as you'll see, I'm only going to be planting and doing pathways in the northern part of the plot. The rest of it is quite wild. The paths are bendy because it looks more interesting, and I shall plant things alongside the paths. This is the zones. So in red is zone number 1. I have 2 zone number 2s in green. Zone number 3 is blue. Zone number 4 is black. And zone number 5 is on the other side of the river mainly. This is zone number 1. So on the right-hand side is the covered seating area where we can sit and we can cook there. And this is where the sun island is. So here I'll plant the things that need more sunshine. I'm also going to make a small wildlife pond quite close to the linden tree to attract some more wildlife. This is zone 2. On the right, you can see the well, then there's the toilet, and there's the caravan and a bench. And in this area, we've already got strawberries, blackberries, and bilberries. It has about 2 to 3 hours of sun per day. And this is the other zone 2. Here I have 2 walnut trees and a sweet chestnut tree and a plum tree. There are 3 trees on the right-hand side at the front, which we're going to cut down to make more light. And in this area, I intend to buy Srisandra, which is a climbing plant that climbs in the shade. And I'm also going to plant, in place of the three trees, a Sorbus aria tree. This is zone three. This is the fish pond, which needs cleaning out. But once we've done that, we're going to have fish there. And I also intend to keep bees, and the bees will go in this zone as well. This is the other part of zone three. So here we've got walnut, hazelnut, and elderberry. This is zone four, where we have lots of trees. We've also got deadwood hedges and piles of logs, which are good for the insects. And this is zone five. This is where there are trees and bushes, piles of leaves and piles of sticks. And this is my design element. So as I've said, there are a lot of things already here. So I don't have to do a lot. Because it's a woodland, I'm not going to have any raised beds. I will do a hugel bed, a round one. I'm only going to plant perennial plants. As I've already mentioned, I'm going to make a small wildlife pond to attract more wildlife. There are already many possibilities of places to relax. So there are two yellow areas. They're like a beach. They're flat and stony, and they're next to the stream. So on hot days, you can sit there and put your feet in the cold water. There are bridges over the stream already. There's the caravan. There's a stone circle. Um, I have a friend who runs off-grid camping courses. So we're going to have a camping area. And there's already a teepee there, actually. In zone four and five, I'm going to hang some bat houses for bats. Um, Yeah, the roofed area with the table and chairs is an ideal place for social gatherings. So when I do social events, they can go there. And the caravan is really nice, and you can actually spend the night there. I didn't want to do the project alone, and I've managed to find four people who are very enthusiastic. So we're the core team. I also have two friends who are wood teachers who are supporting me. One of them showed me in spring all the edible plants and all the poisonous ones. We have a friend who is a fish enthusiast who will help us with the fish pond. My son has done a chainsaw course and he's already cut down a few trees that were hanging and dangerous. I know somebody who's a mushroom expert who's very interested in the project and may come and teach us about mushrooms. And I have a lot of friends who work in the social area who are also have many ideas about the social things that I can do there. The core team, we've met there several times. We observe what's growing there. We've been planning and exchanging ideas. We've marked out the pathways. We've marked out where the wildlife pond will go. We've marked out where the hugel bait will go. There were some saplings growing that we didn't want, so we've pulled all those up. So basically, once the three trees that I showed you have been felled, we can actually begin to plant things. This is what the beach looks like. So there's a bench and there's the water there. This is the sun. This is in the summer. This is what it looks like at the moment. This as well, this is also the Sun Island. You can see a birdhouse on the tree and the caravan. This is the pathways. So we made the pathways by putting leaves down, and since then we've mown it. Again, this is in zone two, the pathways. This is The fish pond is on the right hand side. You can see the benches, the well, the teepee. And finally, this is a picture of the hut again. So, thank you very much for your attention. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And I hope that you could understand my English.